You know, this colony, it's looking a little 100 years in the past, you know? And you know what? I think today we should modern things up a little bit by looking into a mod called PneumaticCraft. And hopefully we'll be able to get our hands on this, the pneumatic armor set. And I've even got a place picked out where we're going to start setting up our little PneumaticCraft workshop right up there. On the second floor, we're going to have a little PneumaticCraft workshop. But you might be wondering, how do we even get started in PneumaticCraft? Well, you know what? I've got just the plan. We're going to need an air compressor to start things off. And if you're new to PneumaticCraft, I think this video will help you out a lot. So there are a few different ways we can learn about PneumaticCraft. It has a book. It has its own book, the PNCR manual. We can also potentially learn about PneumaticCraft through quests, but unfortunately this mod pack doesn't have a specific quest just for PneumaticCraft. And so we're going to use a different method, a method that people tend to forget about. You can open up the achievements tab, and in here, if we find, it's right here. Okay, yeah, this will actually give you a good idea of the kind of progression you need. And sometimes the tooltips will even be helpful to get you started on making stuff. So we're going to start following this, hopefully getting to a point where we can actually make pneumatic armor. We could start things off by just making things from scratch, but there's actually a better way. We're going to hop in our plane here and we're going to go to a village. Because in these villages, there's usually... Aha! Here it is. We found it. Basically a getting started kit for PneumaticCraft. We've got ourselves an air compressor, some pressure tubes, a charging station, an omnidirectional hopper, and a reinforced chest filled with goodies. Well, we're going to take all of it. Now, we just got all this fancy stuff from PneumaticCraft, but what if you can't find a village? And what if you need more materials than what you found in that little village house? Well... the way you get started in PneumaticCraft is by making this stuff, this compressed iron. And the way we do that is with explosives. So we're going to get ourselves some iron. We're going to need some TNT. In this mod pack, we actually have something else that we can use. The bomb from supplementaries. Now, the only reason I suggest we use this is because it transforms one TNT into 4 bombs. So you can actually get a little bit more bang for your buck. Get it? Bang for your buck? Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, so the way we make this stuff is we take our iron, we toss it on the ground, we take our bomb, and we throw it right at the iron. Boom. And just like that, we now have some compressed iron ingots. A lot more of them. And perfect. This will be hopefully enough space. But if we need to, we can also head over here and start filling up this area. But anyways, let's get this show on the road. First thing we're going to need is we're going to need to set up some air compressors. Now, these things, they can explode. They can explode and they can break. So keep that in mind when you're placing them down. That is a real possibility. We're going to place down some pressure tubes. We're also going to set up ourselves a charging station. Now, the reason we want a charging station is because we need to get the wrench. This is what we're after, the pneumatic wrench. In order to make it, we're going to need some orange dye, some compressed iron ingots, air canister, which is also pretty easy to make with this compressed iron ingots. We need a lot of those compressed iron ingots. So you know what? Make a bunch of them because you're going to need them. Look at that. Look at that. Now that we have our pneumatic wrench, we can spin these things around. If we throw this into our charging station and then we get some coal and we stick it in these air compressors, we should see the pressure start to build. As you can see, this little dial is slowly starting to tick up. Now, here's the thing. If that dial ticks up too far, our pressure system will explode. So be careful and keep that in mind. Now, there are some ways to prevent those explosions from happening. We can make ourselves a safety tube module, one of these guys. This module will vent high pressure air if the tube pressure reaches 4.9 bar. When upgraded with a module expansion card, the threshold can be configured precisely via the GUI. And we can also make one of these, a security upgrade. This right here, we can stick this in one of our air compressors and it'll prevent it from exploding. But if you're short on funds, we can also just do this. You hear that annoying noise? You hear that annoying noise? That is the air pressure being released as you can see in the top. It's very annoying. It's useful to know that you can do that kind of thing. Okay, so here, we're gonna leave that as it is for now. I'm gonna go and make myself some security upgrades and some safety pressure valve thingies. So there we go. We got our pressure tube on there, and then we're gonna put a security in there and a security in there, and we should be... Oh, you hear that? It just released a bit of pressure because it got too high. That's good. That's exactly what we want. Now, for now, we can only get our pneumatic wrench to a certain amount of bar because these systems will only hold about 5 bar of pressure. But if we want to go higher than that, we can actually make ourselves some advanced air compressors. But right now, we've got a different task in mind because we need to get our hands on some oil. And we need to get our hands on some oil because we need to make plastic. So what we want is the pneumatic armor. So we're going to need a bunch of these air canisters, which we already know are pretty easy to make. We're going to need a compressed iron helmet, which is just compressed iron around a leather cap. We're also going to need this, a finished PCB, which is honestly the hardest part of making these. In order to make the finished PCB, we need these transistors and capacitors. They can be made in something called a pressure chamber, which we will make in a little bit. And we also need this unassembled PCB, which can be made via assembly controller, or we can... The easier way to do it for us right now is going to be doing it through an etching tank. In order to set that up, we're going to need etching acid. The etching acid can also be made in a pressure chamber, but there's one more thing we're going to need. We're going to need to make these empty PCBs, and they require a redstone torch, some copper nuggets, and plastic sheets. The plastic sheet is really the hard part, and that's where we require the oil. However, if you're in this mod pack, you can actually use raw plastic from rats, and raw plastic can be produced from plastic waste, which can be used by grinding up garbage piles. So if you watch my last episode, you know how to make garbage piles, and you can grind that up in a millstone to get yourself some plastic waste. That'll be, you know what, that'll be the easier way to do it if you are in this mod pack, but if you're not, we're going to do it the hard way. And because it's also going to look cool, and we're going to have this like cool big machines and stuff like that, it's going to be fun. We need oil. And the first thing we need to get oil is we need like an oil mining system. If we look on our map, there should be, yeah, like over here, these little black blobs. Yeah, now PneumaticCraft has something called a seismic sensor. One of these, seismic sensor. If we make one of these, we should be able to find ourselves some crude oil. But for us, we're just going to head over to our nearest crude oil spill and gather from there. We might even hit a couple of them. Here's what we're going to need for our crude oil system. We're going to need some fluid tanks. I'm going to bring along probably a couple large ones just because I already have them. We're going to need one of these gas lifts. We're going to need a liquid hopper, and we're also going to need to bring along some power. So I'm going to just take this and this with us. And we're just going to let that all decompress for the time being. All right. Okay. That's fine. I'm fine. All right. Let's go get ourselves some oil. Black gold. That's right, people. Better keep it a secret from the U.S. government. That's for sure. So first thing we're going to want to do is take our gas lift, and we're going to want to place it above the liquid here. Then we're going to get our air compressor. We're getting crude oil. Now we need to get the crude oil out of the gas lift, and the way to do that is with this liquid hopper. We're going to start by replacing a large fluid tank down, and then a hopper. Like that? Yeah, there we go. We're getting our crude oil. Now, as you can see over there, we are slowly pumping out all of the crude oil. Now, it's going to take a little bit, but we can also help by getting a bucket and just bucketing it in there. We don't have speed upgrades yet, so this is as good as it gets, my mans. There we go. We got ourselves 112 buckets of crude oil just from this one spot, which is pretty good, but you know what? It's not enough. It's not enough for me, that's for sure. All right, we got 2 full large fluid tanks and one more half full-ish large fluid tank of crude oil. And I think that'll be enough. I hope that'll be enough. That's a decent amount. Now we're going to need to make ourselves a refinery. We're going to need these. We're going to need a refinery controller and a refinery output. We're going to need 1 refinery controller and 4 of these refinery outputs. Now the refineries, they like to be warm. They like to be warm. And we're actually going to use something to keep it warm, but we also want to keep the sides of it covered. And you can use something like blocks or trapdoors for that, but the mod actually has a item in it called thermal lagging. And this is really, really handy, specifically because it allows you to interact with the refinery while it's covered. See, if we put this thermal lagging on even this vibration chamber here, what happens is we can still access a vibration chamber through the thermal lagging. And if we want to break the thermal lagging, we just have to shift so that we can see it and then break it. It's actually really cool stuff. We're also going to need to get our hands on a vortex tube. You can see if we hold shift, we actually get a little blurb about it. Splits incoming air into hot and cold components. One side gets hot, the other gets cold. This is what we're going to use to make our refinery nice and warm. But we're also going to need a heat sink, one of these guys. All right, we're also going to need a few more fluid tanks, probably like 4 more, and then 4 of these liquid hoppers as well. So we're going to want to put down our refinery controller. Look at these blocks, man. They look so cool. And we're going to want 4 refinery outputs on top of it, just like that. And then next to it, we're going to want to put our oil down here with our liquid hoppers. Just so you know, you don't actually have to use these liquid hoppers. You can use other liquid moving things like the create pipes down there that we have. You can also use some stuff from things like mechanism and other things if you don't like these liquid hoppers. There we go. We got our crude oil moving into the refinery. Now we want to place 4 small fluid tanks like that. There we go. Now we have it set up just like this. Now in order to keep this refinery warm, we're gonna grab our vortex tube, and we've got this red side, and then we've got a blue side, and we want to make sure the red side is facing our refinery controller. Then we get our heat sink, stick it down on the cold side, and then we're gonna want to connect this thing up to some pressure. There we go. All right, we got both our air compressors going. This is slowly heating up along with our refinery. But if we want this thing to get hotter, we have to cover it. And that's where the thermal lagging comes in. We're going to cover every surface that doesn't have a block attached to it, including the top. That'll keep that nice and warm. And now, as you can see, our crude oil is going into our refinery, and it's being converted into these 4 types of liquid. We're getting diesel, we're getting kerosene, we're getting gasoline, and at the top, we're getting something called LPG. And that LPG up there is what we're going to be using to make our plastic. All right, now while we're waiting for all of our crude oil to process, we're going to make one of these, a pressure chamber. And if you get your book out, they actually have a nice looking diagram of what a pressure chamber looks like in the book. If we go into this chapter, manufacturing, we'll see pressure chamber right here. And if we shift over, you'll see right here, pressure chamber. Now this is the one that I think we're going to make. Oh, wow. I didn't know they could do that. Look at that. You can make like a diagram of it. For all of these, we're going to need at least 2 interfaces. And for the bigger one and the extra big one, you're going to need more. But we're going to stick with this medium-sized one. We're going to need 2 valves, 2 interfaces. We're going to need pressure chamber walls and then 12 of the pressure chamber glass. You don't need the pressure chamber glass exactly, but it does look cool. So now in this mod, we also have something called compressed creativity, which adds some things that allow us to connect our create mod stuff to our PneumaticCraft stuff. So if we wanted to, we could do something like the rotational compressor, which actually allows us to make rotational power into air pressure. And the opposite is true as well. We can make a compressed air engine, which can turn compressed air into rotational power, which is actually really, really neat. All right, now let's make ourselves this big old pressure chamber. Boom, just like that. We got ourselves an awesome pressure chamber. I'm going to put my export side on the bottom, my import on top. There we go. Looks got a little animation. We're going to do something like that. Then we're going to place down a chest just underneath of it. I'm going to use one of the reinforced chests that I already have. These reinforced chests are handy because they're blast proof. So if you ever end up in an issue where your pressure chamber explodes or something else explodes, you won't have the unfortunate situation of losing all your stuff at the same time. All right, so now that we've got both of these set up, we're going to get ourselves a thermo-pneumatic processing plant. This thing right here. This is what's going to allow us to turn our LPG that's up here into plastic. Now, along with our thermo-pneumatic processing plant, we're going to want a few other things. In our mod pack, I think the easiest way to move fluids is going to be with fluid pipes from Create. But instead of moving all of our rotational power from where it is currently all the way up to where we are, I think what I want to do is I want to make an engine, one of these, a compressed air engine. This thing will allow us to air pressure into rotational power so that we can operate our mechanical pumps. But in order to make one, we're going to need this engine rotor. And in order to make the engine rotor, we're going to need these turbine blades, which we can produce with gold and redstone dust in our pressure chamber. Now, in theory, we could potentially use our liquid hopper, or we could even use a series of liquid hoppers to connect our thermo-pneumatic processing plant to this fluid tank up here. But you know what? I want to do it the cool way. That's why I want to make the engine. So first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to actually connect this thing up to pressure. There we go. Okay, now in the future, we might want to use this to produce our air pressure for us, but I think for now, I'm just going to make a bunch of air compressors because it's just easier for me, okay? It's just easier for me in the moment. Right now, we should be building up some pressure. Now, this thermopneumatic processing plant, it needs heat. It needs heat in order to function properly. In order to get that heat, the way that we're going to do it is we're actually going to take this vortex tube and we're going to shift it around a little bit. There we go. We're going to get some of this heat pipe here and we're going to pull it around the back. And then we're going to take our vortex tube. We're going to put it there, make sure it's facing the right way. Get our heat sink, put it on top, and then hook it up again to our pressure. There we go. That ought to work. Now our refinery is increasing in temperature, but so is our thermo-pneumatic processing plant. We need to move this LPG into this thermo-pneumatic processing plant, and the way that I'm going to do that is just through a fluid pipe. Next thing we're going to need is we're going to need rotational power. So into our pressure chamber, we're going to put 8 gold and 16 redstone. Oh, there they are. Turbine blades. Put our cogwheel there. We're going to put a gearbox up here. And we're going to put our compressed air engine right there. Oh my gosh, it's working. Look at that. Now we have LPG inside of our thermo-pneumatic processing plant. And we should be able to, yeah, if we put coal in here, we should get molten plastic out the other side. This thermo-pneumatic processing plant also needs some pressure. And then the last thing we're going to need is some coal for it. There we go. Now we're getting molten plastic. Now, I think before I continue, I want to rearrange this a little bit so that it's a little bit nicer. Maybe makes a little bit more sense. All right. Okay. So I've shifted this around a little bit. So I set up these copper valve handles along with these fluid valves and then hooked it up to the thermo-pneumatic processing plant. This way, I can basically have any of these 4 liquids go directly into my thermo-pneumatic processing plant without having to like move my pipes around. I can just turn this copper valve handle and then flip this around whenever I need to. That is a much cleaner setup now. All right, so now to make some plastic, we're going to need this thing called a heat frame. And now we can actually use the cold side of our vortex tube. We're going to pull that off. All right, now this heat frame can't just be placed anywhere in the world. It actually has to be placed on a chest, just like that. And then when we place stuff inside of the chest, it'll either be cooled or heated. We can actually use this in order to smelt ores and things like that. There we go. Now it's minus 170. Oh my gosh, it's so cold. Now I think we should be able to take one of these fluid tanks, put it in here, and then, yep, we get plastic sheets out. That's amazing. A full small fluid tank gave us 41 plastic sheets. That's not half bad. And the plastic age has finally begun. Now that we finally have our plastic sheets, we need to move into making PCBs. And the first thing we're going to need for that is a Amadron tablet, which should be... yeah, it should be relatively easy to make now that we have our plastic. We're going to charge our Amadron tablet at a charging pad, charging station thingy. Now we're gonna need to shift right click it onto this chest here, and then we can place orders. We have an ordering tablet. This is actually so cool. Okay, so what we need in here, we want the PCB blueprint to grab some emeralds, and we stick them in here, I think. Right click on the thing that we want. We can then click place order. Oh, there's a drone. Amadron delivery drone. Oh, and it disappeared. Oh, there it is. We just had an Amadron delivery for our PCB blueprint, which is exactly what we're going to need to craft our PCBs. We're actually going to use it to make this UV light box. There we go. We've got some pressure to our UV light box. And right next to our UV light box, we're going to put our etching tank. Now, we're going to use our pressure chamber in order to make these empty PCBs, using redstone torches, gold nuggets, and plastic sheets. And I think we're going to take them and put them in our UV light box. Finally, the etching acid. We're doing it. We need gunpowder, rotten flesh, spider eye, and a bucket of molten plastic, which we have all of. Now, it only requires 1 bar of pressure, so we should be good. And we actually got one of our empty PCBs to make it into this etching tank. I actually shifted this threshold. So if we want, we can make the threshold something more like 90%. So that when this hits etch success chance of 90%, then it'll drop into the etching tank. We already have our etching acid. Don't spill it on your shirt. Etching process, 7%, 8%. All right, well, it's happening. Oh, one more thing. One more thing I didn't think about. This etching tank needs to be heated. We got our first unassembled PCB, is we have to convert it into a finished PCB. Now, these finished PCBs, they're used for a wide variety of things, but the thing that we are most concerned about is our pneumatic suit. We're going to need these transistors and the capacitors. Transistors are made like this in our pressure chamber. The capacitors are made similarly, just with slime balls in our pressure chamber. Now we can start moving into the more interesting stuff, like the pneumatic armor, which is exactly why we started doing this in the first place. I want my pneumatic armor. All right, I got myself a total of 7 finished PCBs. And to get what we want, I think we just need 1 per piece. After all that work, I think we're finally ready to make the armor. Now, one thing that I didn't really do too much of is deal with my air power, and that's because I think later on, once we get our steam engine power up here, I'm gonna replace all of this with one of the compressed creativity power thingies. There it is. Our new set of armor. Now, it doesn't have as much strength as our current set of armor, but you know what? And unfortunately, one of these is, quote, dented. This is from the Reforged mod. We've got resilient, dented. I think we can actually adjust these attributes using these hammers, I think. I just got unlucky with the rolls. But we do now have our full set of armor. Yes, look at us. Look at us. We're like the Terminator. Compressed Iron Man. Now, I think if we take our armor, like our boots, for example, and we stick it in here, yeah, we get this little button. And we can see all the different upgrades that we can add to our boots. So yeah, one of the ones that we want is this jet boot upgrade. Now, this stuff is not necessarily super easy to make. It's going to require us to continue to work through this mod. Whoa. Step assist? Common pneumatic boots. Oh my gosh. Wait, we have fall damage removed? No way. Oh man, are you kidding me? They come with a fall damage. Full fall damage reduction. That's awesome. Look at all the different upgrades we can get. It's crazy. Oh look, we can actually see how much pressure is set in each piece now. There's one more thing I want to do, and it's to get rid of this stupid dented pneumatic chest piece. I hate it. We got 2 common pieces, a dented one and a resilient. That's just not okay. I need to get one of these armorer's hammer. We can only get it from a villager trade, which means we have to go find this guy. Stop being a cook. There we go. All right, let's see what we get. We need to get him up to level 3 before we know. Okay, please, 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 give me the hammer. Oh, come on. I don't want to buy your stupid helmets. Why are villagers like this? Why is trading like this? Why is trading like this? I only get to know if he's at 3, which means I have to just waste ridiculous amounts of emeralds. Okay, well, we'll try and find another village then. Fine. Fine. Possibly we can find a villager here that can help us out. What are y'all doing? Be employed. What's wrong with you? There we go. Dang it! Dang it! You... Please. Yes! We got the armorer's hammer. Yes! Jeez, I hate villagers. Oh my gosh. They're so annoying. Eternal armorer's hammer. Perfect. Now I think if we take our... We should be able to... Alright, so I just learned something. Apparently, if there's any durability on these, the eternal hammer won't work. So that's good to know. Now it works. Okay, great. All right. Epic. Okay, nice. Hey, where'd the hammer go? I made it eternal though. Oh man. Okay, well that doesn't really work perfectly, but you know what? We did get an epic pneumatic chestplate out of it, so that's good. We get +2 max health, +2 armor, and +1 armor toughness. See, you know what? Not so bad. Having at least one, the dented one, be better is good enough. We can always go and buy another hammer and use it as we see fit. I just can't believe it failed. I can't believe it broke or something. But you know what? That's just how it goes. That's just how things go sometimes, you know? When you're mixing mods, sometimes things are funky and strange. Yeah, okay, so I don't know if that's the end of the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. And let me know how you liked this episode. Let me know if you learned something about PneumaticCraft. I know I sure did. I haven't really... Go away. I haven't really used this mod that much before, so, you know...